activities, which is very important. The learning activities lead, and they're very important preparation for assessments. I'll talk about assessments, what are they and why do we do them? And also I'll talk about the grades at Flinders. So to begin, so we have a bunch of different ways that we support students. This year, and you'll still be, you might be in our learning management system called Flow. Some of your topics might, and other topics might be in a learning management system called Canvas. Flinders is undergoing a transition this year from one to the other, from Flow to Canvas. But from next year, everything will be in Canvas, the one that is on the right of screen. Okay, so we have support which is available in both of those. If you log into Flow and you're on Flow with some of your topics, you have a little icon ticket here that says Student Learning Support Service on there. That will automatically be there for you. If you click onto that site, that has a lot of resources that we offer for you to have a look at, to help you with your study, time management, writing, all kinds of things. And if you're in Canvas, if you go to the far left menu, the dark menu on the far left, and go to Help down the bottom, you'll also find Seek Learning Support. I've got highlighted on the bottom there. If you click through to that, you'll go onto our site in Canvas with the same materials on it. Okay, so in the future, from next year onwards, you'll find us there in Canvas. We have a bunch of things we offer. We offer sessions to learn about, EndNote, which is a particular platform you might hear about during your studies. We do provide support for that. Some of the key things we do, we have the Learning Lounge. So I've got that on another slide in a minute. This is person-to-person support at the library. You can come in between particular times and get some support with our learning advisors. Studiosity is a very similar service, but it's online and it's available 24/7. So you can submit assessments to Studiosity. An advisor somewhere in the world will have a look at it, read it, and provide some feedback to you. We also have the Learning Kit, which appears on our site. You'll see it when you get there. And of course, we have our orientation sessions. So on our site, we have these, the image looks a bit wacky, but so on this left side here, we've got some PDFs. These are static PDFs that help you with some information about referencing. So this is for referencing at the end of your written assessments, paraphrasing and quoting, lots of different things to do with essay structure, writing structure, as I said before, time management, also some things related to numeracy as well. There's a lot of information there for you to have a look at if you need some support. On our site, we also have some videos. This is my colleague Lauren here, a video about paragraphs and paragraph structure. So you can access those to help supplement your study. And we also have workshops that we have at certain times during semester. So on the right side of screen, they are our dates for our English for Academic Purposes workshops. These are workshops for everyone, and that we have topics there: academic writing, clear and concise writing, paraphrasing and quoting, etc., all the way down to editing and proofreading. So those are the dates there. The QR code at the bottom here is quite small, but if you also type in English for Academic Purposes, Flinders, in Google, this will come up as well on a Flinders page. So that is on the Flinders pages as well. Just leave that up for a second. Okay, so the Learning Lounge, when you are looking around campus and you find your way to the Central Library, on level 2, you'll find an area that looks like this. It also has a title here. It's called the Commons. And in this open area that you can see here, this is our Learning Lounge. Between 11 o'clock and 2:30 every day of semester, not on the weekends, but during semester time, during the week, you can just walk in here and have a chat to our advisors. I haven't got a picture of them here, but they normally wear a blue jumper that says Learning Advisor on it. So you can go in without registration and sit down and have a chat with them about anything, pretty much. What you're working on, you can sit there and continue working on an assessment, and you can get some help there as well. So Studiosity, like I said before, is a similar service, but it's online. All right, so we'll talk about colleges, courses, and topics. Now, this is very important. You do have some idea of this already because you've already been admitted to your degree and enrolled in at least your first semester of topics. But I will go through this a bit as well because it is important to preface talking about assessments. So the university does many things, and it all revolves around knowledge, okay? And primarily, people at the university, that includes me as a lecturer, it includes you as a student, and it includes professional staff, professors, everyone at the university, do 3 things related to knowledge. They do research, they practice as experts in their field, and they learn new things for themselves. They're students for life. I'm learning new things every day, as well as you. So we're all in this together, and we all have this knowledge, economy and currency that we talk to each other about, and is our focus. So within that knowledge, we break those up into 6 different colleges. One that focuses on business, government and law, education, psychology and social work, humanities, arts, social sciences, medicine and public health, nursing and health sciences, and science and engineering. All of those 6 colleges focus on different areas of knowledge as a focus and as a discipline. That's all? Okay. So your degree is also called at Flinders a course. So sometimes this language is a bit challenging. If you come from another university or have friends that go to University of Adelaide or UniSA or somewhere else, they have different names for different things. At Flinders, the whole degree is called a course. And the course is simply a collection of topics. Okay, so you collect topics like they were collecting badges, okay? And all the topics together make a course or your degree. And you have to do a certain amount of topics to get your degree. But topics can come from any college. Okay, so if you are studying in a Bachelor of Science, that doesn't mean that you're only going to study topics in the College of Science and Engineering. You can study topics from many different places at the university that focus on different disciplines. Okay? And if you're in a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts, it doesn't mean that your classmates around you are all from the same degree. They can be studying different degrees, but they happen to be studying the same topic with you at that time. Because for their degree, which is unique to them, they'll have that topic as part of their degree, okay? So some topics you have here are very large, 500-600 students, and others are very small, 10-15 students. So what kinds of topics might you have? I like to use the analogy of a patchwork quilt. Okay, so this is a quilt and it's made of different patches that you stitch together. And this is analogous to that degree with lots of different topics. So your degree is your patchwork quilt. And depending on the degree that you're a part of, you'll make that up in different ways. Some of them are called core topics. You have to do them. Okay, so if you have, and especially with things like Bachelor of Nursing, Bachelor of Teaching, Bachelor of Education, anything to do, engineering as well, anything to do where you have an accreditation involved. So you'll be accredited by a professional body and you'll be able to practice as a nurse or a teacher. You have a lot of core topics, you have to do them. So the pattern of the quilt is already set out for you at the beginning and you have to do the topics that you're asked to do in order to be qualified in that profession. In other degrees, like Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, it's completely different. You've got a free patchwork quilt. You can make whatever you want, okay? So in science, you can study physics. You can also study philosophy. You can also study English literature if you want. You can study all kinds of things. But in these types of degrees that have more flexibility, you do need to have some sort of area of focus, okay? So something within the patchwork quilt has to be an area of focus, which makes sense, but then everything else you can choose, okay? So for example, in science, you might major in chemistry. When I was an undergraduate, I majored in chemistry. I actually did a double major in chemistry. That was my field that I liked. And in arts, you might do a major in modern history, for example. There are also minor sequences as well. So these are particular patterns as well, but they're smaller ones. So for example, in my degree, when I did my Bachelor of Science, I did at the time it was called an extended major in chemistry, but I also did a minor in mathematics. So I did a little bit of mathematics as well, a collection of topics in maths. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted to be able to teach chemistry and mathematics. And at the time, you had to do a major and a minor in those to be able to do that. So that's how I organised my study, okay? The rest of the stuff, when you've organised your core topics, your major, minor topics, whatever it is, if there are patches left, you can choose whatever you want. And these are called elective topics. So the topics that you study are not themselves called elective topics, okay, or major topics, or minor topics, or core topics necessarily. They're just topics, but to you, it's an elective because it doesn't make part of your major, or it's one of your major topics, okay? That's how it works. All right, so we've talked about colleges, we've talked about courses and topics. Again, I just want to reiterate that there's a lot of language around the university and there are a lot of things happening, and you don't have to face this alone. There's a lot of support available. You can always come and chat to me on level 2 of the library in the Commons and my colleagues. You can always chat to people in the library who are librarians at the library as well. If you ever need something and you're not quite sure where to go, you can always go to Flinders Connect. There's a phone number, I've got that on screen, but it's also the ground floor of the library. When you walk in from the plaza area, go to Flinders Connect and say, I need some help with this, where should I go? There are many health services on campus as well, including a GP and careers employability team. They're also located at the library. They can help you think about your job that you want to, or the career you want to move into now before you finish your degree. Okay, so they can also help with that. And there's many, many more different support services. So make sure to reach out for help if you need. And even if you don't need some help, explore these options as well, because they're very helpful. I've talked about us. So concluding our first part of today's session, I just wanted to highlight that language. So we're talking about colleges, okay, areas of expertise, services you can access, degrees, which are also called courses at Flinders, topics, which are the small things that you actually study, okay, the small things you actually study in the semester. You'll be studying normally, if you're doing a full-time load, 4 topics in your first semester, majors, minors, core topics, and elective topics. Okay, so we'll move on to the second part, learning activities. So when you go into class, right from week 1, you'll have many different learning activities you're involved in. Some of these you will also have had to pre-register in. Sometimes you have to pre-register in tutorials and workshops and laboratories and things like this because the class size is limited and you have to pick the time of the week that you do that. So that might be the case. There are all of these types of activities. So lectures. What are lectures? Lectures typically and historically are a forum where a specialist comes in to share knowledge with a large audience. We don't have a very large audience today. We do have a lot of people online as well, though. We don't have a super large audience today, but still this audience is large enough that we're doing a bit of a lecture format here. So there's a lot of people, there are a lot of different stages in their learning at one time, and I do my best to try and bring you along with what I'm talking about, everyone along, so that you can understand the important things that I want to reach out to you about. Nowadays, you can have that in live theatres like we're doing now. You can have it online and in web platforms. Okay, and we have people joining us online at the moment. It'll also be recorded and posted online as well. And you can also have them as short videos. In your learning management system, you might find a series of short videos where your lecturer talks for about 10 minutes only. Okay, it's still for a large audience though. It's for a lot of people on the topic. These are the ways that you can engage with the lectures. So what are my tips about lectures? When you're in a lecture, try to actively listen to the thoughts and the ideas of the person presenting. I know that seems obvious, but whenever someone like me gets up and tries to talk to you about something, there's always a point to what I'm trying to talk about. And listening actively to that and trying to work out what's the point that Matt's trying to make here today, or what couple of points he's trying to make, is the best thing to do, okay? Take notes as you learn new ideas, or if your thinking is challenged in class, okay? So you have a bit of a question, you think, oh, that's not what I thought, that's a bit different. Write those things down as a cue to you to remember them, but also as a cue to ask questions later on when you've got a chance. You can always ask questions during lectures, okay? But you will also have other opportunities normally in your topic to ask questions as well. So write all those questions down. You might want to look those questions up yourself and find answers for that. Information is not a privilege these days. You can use search engine. The internet has all information on there, but also you can ask your tutors or lecturers later on or in the session. Tutorials and workshops, this is normally an extension to lecture-based content, but it's in smaller groups. So you have a focus of people, normally about 10 people, 15 people only. So in a large group, for example, like this, you'd then break off into a few different tutorial groups, and you'd have a tutor or a lecturer working more closely with you. In these sessions, everyone actively discusses their thoughts and issues related to the content. So this is a very student-focused. The lecture is also student-focused because I'm trying to organise this in a way that you can understand and come along with me. But the tutorials and workshops are very much focused on where are you at in your learning and what can we do now to make sure that we push that as far forward as possible. Okay? Push that envelope as far forward as possible. You normally do practice problems or calculations, and it's really important to ask questions in these sessions. The whole reason why we're here is for you. We want you to be the next engineers, the next philosophers, the next nurses that go into the clinic. It's all about you. So in these sessions especially, make sure to ask those questions you have. Okay, I've already said this. Focused on your learning journey attended by groups of students, not the whole cohort. And also in discussions, do be respectful to your peers and your teachers as well. Because often these, we discuss issues in tutorials and workshops at university, and it's important to discuss those ideas, but we have to be respectful for each other when we do that as well. Labs and pracs. So this is essentially, I know I've got a picture of someone in a clinical setting here. It's broader than this. It's practical-based activities. These are like specialised workshops, okay? And in this, you practice the work and the skills of being a professional. And that's what these are about. My tips for these types of practical sessions are to prepare well for them. Because at the time that you're doing them, you want to be focused on doing the work, doing the practicing, and experiencing that, and learning from that experiential perspective. So you want to read widely before you go in. Be aware of if there are safety procedures that are important, be aware of those, because you can't walk into a laboratory without knowing about safety procedures. And if you have to learn about the safety procedures during that time, that's going to take you away from experiencing as much as you can using the facilities we have on campus, for example. Try to become familiar with typical field-specific rules, again for that reason, and also study the things that you have learned in class. At any time in your learning in the field is partial. You don't start a degree of engineering because you're an engineer already. So as you go, your understanding of that field will be partial. Okay, so when you go into these sessions, study what you have learned already and try and put that into practice in these sessions. Online activities. These are available on Flinders Learning Online, also, of course, Canvas. If you're on Flow, there's still a platform that's often used called Collaborate. On Canvas, we'll be using Microsoft Teams. I know it's a bit challenging still going through this transition, but they work very similarly. They also work similarly to Zoom. Right? All of these web platforms work in a very similar way. There's also information online to help you there. Lectures, tutorials, workshops, videos and text, interactive content as well, and discussion forums also happen online. So the discussion forums, try and make use of these as well. Sometimes discussion forums online at the university can sometimes be a bit quiet, but you don't want them to be quiet. Contribute to those, type them in there, just like you're contributing on social media. And again, with this idea of trying to learn from each other and also fill in the gaps, misunderstandings that you have. Actually, being involved in all these different ways makes everything a lot easier. The learning activities easier and the assessments easier. Okay, consolidation. This is very important. So when you're at the university, no one is going to follow you up on doing work. The lecturer doesn't have time. The lecturer has 600 students in their class. They're not going to be on your back to get things finished. Now, they do want you to pass, and they'll do everything they can, but they can't be on your back about doing that. You have a lot of free time in your schedule. You'll have a lecture here, a workshop here, a few things online, and you'll have a lot of free time in between. But that's time you've got to use like it's a full-time job if you're studying full-time to consolidate and read yourself and learn that stuff yourself. It's very self-directed learning at university. And so if you're coming straight from school or a different place where you've learned, and it was a very close kind of class format, and you'd have prompts all the time about things that are coming up. Sometimes here that doesn't happen at all, and you don't get any prompts to do work. You have to be very proactive about looking, what do you need to do to prepare for this? And having a schedule, a calendar of the semester, and mapping out where your assessments are, where your learning activities are, the things you need to do to reach that final goal at the end of semester and the topic is very important. So make sure that you do schedule in and do further reading, your own practice, reflection on how you're going in those areas, and make good use of your own study time. Okay, so to recap that section, we talked about lectures, tutorials, workshops, laboratories. We talked about online activities, practicals, Flow and Canvas, of course, Collaborate and Microsoft Teams, and importantly, consolidation, consolidating what you've been learning and being very self-directed in that learning. Excellent. So these four here, lectures, tutorials, all this kind of stuff, sometimes they're called different things. So different lecturers will call them different things. You know, they might refer to lectures as seminars, or they might refer to, I can't think of any at the moment because these are the ones I'm used to. But anyway, in different fields, they have different names sometimes for these things. But the same idea applies. And sometimes those sessions are very unique and it happens in a different way. So if you have any questions about that, it's good to, you can get used to them as well in topic, but also ask your lecturer or tutor or your peers what those things mean. Okay, assessments. Talk about assessments now. What are they and why do we do them? Assessment activities are simply learning activities, okay, just like the things you've done before, but they are assessed by your tutor or lecturer, which means that they have a look at it and they take out a measuring tape and measure where you're at in your learning, all right? There are assessments in each topic and they are detailed in your statement of assessment methods. So before you even start studying the topic, you can have a look at all the assessments, how strongly they are weighted. You know, for example, if you have to write a report, how much is that worth for your final grade at 30%, 40%? You know, how important is it that you prepare yourself for that one? Statement of assessment methods, you can always find that there. There are essays, reports, different forms of presentation, oral presentations, poster presentations. There are also quizzes, tests, and examinations. And there are lots of different assessments, more than this, but these are some main ones that you might come across. Importantly, Jeff Masters is the CEO of the Australian Council for Education Research. I studied with these guys. They set a lot of assessments nationally, and they've also worked in the international space. They're assessment specialists, okay? And Jeff always says the purpose of assessment, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about what assessment is. The purpose of assessment is to measure where you are in your learning journey at the time of assessment. So, you know, if you get a credit, or from school, if you get a C for something, right? Does that mean that you're a credit or a C student? No, it just means that at this stage in your learning, that is where you're at. And it helps to target feedback for how you can move forward, learn some more, okay? That's the purpose of assessment. So what are those forms? A couple of them, extended response. Anything which is extended response, which means you have to produce a lot of work and you have open-ended questions. Like an essay, report, or presentation. With an essay, you write a long document, like 1,000 words, 1,500 words, maybe more. Right? A long document, it's an open-ended question that you have to answer. You have to write a lot about it. Reports, same thing, 1,000, 1,500 words. You have to tell someone a lot about what you know. Okay? And presentations, you might stand up in front of a class and talk to them for 5, 10 minutes, things that you know. Okay? Extended response. You want to read widely in preparation for these. Think deeply about the question that's being asked and what is being required of you, especially from a measurement and assessment perspective. What are you expected to produce? Apply the things that you've learned in class and communicate that with detail, because the assessment is going to be made by what you produce in that assessment. That's the only thing. You can know the topic really well and the content really well, but if it doesn't come across on paper in those assessments, then it's very difficult for a lecturer or a tutor to assess that and to infer from that artifact you've produced what you know and how your learning's going. Okay, so put it all on the page. There are also short response assessments like tests and quizzes. These are very different from extended response. Typically, you can give responses with less than a sentence, maybe sometimes a bit longer, 2 paragraphs. Sometimes you have multiple choice questions to answer where you're given a range of possible answers. Some of them are close, some of them are not so close, and then there's one right answer in there. Sometimes there are even multiple right answers, and that's indicated in the question. Okay, so this is very much a selection, and it's typically on a focused area of the curriculum. So with this, you want to make sure that when you do these questions, you've of course read widely to understand all the different things that you need to know for that test. But also, you don't need to write a lot of information for some of these. If you see that you have a question in a test and it's only a 1 or 2 line response, don't put a paragraph, right? And the opposite is true as well. If you have an essay, don't write just a couple of paragraphs. Make sure you use up the whole space. If you overcut it, you're going to waste time in a test. And if you undercut it in an essay or extended response, for example, there's no way you're going to be able to show as much as you're expected to show. Examinations, very similar to tests or quizzes. They can take different forms though, depending on the area of study. For example, if you're studying law, you might have to write 2 or 3 essay responses in a 3-hour period for an examination. I don't know about if law have examinations at the moment still, but they can be different styles of questions depending on the area of study. Normally, it focuses on the whole curriculum, all the stuff that you've learned, the whole syllabus. And here it's also, of course, very important to provide answers of an appropriate level of detail. Because in a way, in an assessment, you're also playing a bit of a game, right? So you have to learn, you have to know the rules of the game before going for it as well, okay? Okay, skills and practice-based learning. You can also do assessments with these as well. And normally these are focused on how you will often use your hands, right, in that setting and act as a professional and use professional standards. So that's why when you do your learning activities in this kind of environment, it's important to focus on those skills with your hands, using professional standards, all this kind of stuff. Okay, so just to reiterate, assessments and feedback are all about your learning journey and how you're progressing toward becoming a professional in that field. Assessments and feedback tell you, and this is the value of assessments, how much you have learned, where you are currently at in your learning journey, and what to learn next. So whenever you approach an assessment, think about that. That's the important thing. If you struggle with an assessment, that's fine, right? But think about it. What does that tell you? What areas do you need to focus on to try and push your learning a bit further? When you get feedback from a lecturer or an assessor on that work, what are the key things that they indicate to you as elements where you've done very well and progressed very far, and other places where there's a bit more work needed? That is the value of an assessment. And you get extra time from your tutors because they'll spend some time reading your work and giving you that feedback. There are many different ways that they can provide, lecturers and tutors and assessors can provide feedback. One of them for extended responses, this is just an example, is to use an assessment rubric. Okay, now this is not an excellent example. Yours might not look exactly like this, but the thing with assessments and assessment rubrics, which is what this is, it's a matrix, is that they always look very different. Okay, so if you have an assessment rubric, for example, when you're writing a report or an essay, normally an extended response type assessment, have a look at it in detail. The idea of an assessment rubric is to place on the left column, for example, the criteria that assessors are looking for. So for example, on this one, I wanted my students in the top left corner here, I wanted them to reflect on past experiences and associated assumptions and biases. Now, you don't have to know what that means, but my students had an idea of what that meant because I spent time talking to them about what that means, assumptions and biases are. And I say to them, in this assessment task, that's what I'm measuring you against. I want to see how much you know about that, which we've been talking about and developing in our learning activities. And what I do is I scale. Now, you'll notice at the top there are points, okay? But forget the numbers. I think sometimes we get distracted by the numbers. Hopefully I can get a 7 out of 10. If I don't get a 9 out of 10, I've done something wrong, you know, all of this kind of stuff. I'll probably get a 6 out of 10 because I always do, right? Forget about the numbers. Have a look at what those descriptions are. And up the top, there's a description I've written, what it looks like when you get a 9 or 10 response, okay? And that's an indication to my student, you're doing really well in this area, keep it up, you're ready for the next thing, okay? On some places, my students will do very well. On other places, the same student might not do quite as well. But that's okay, because I don't expect that they're going to get really good marks in everything. There are going to be areas where they have strengths at this time, weaknesses at that time. The important thing is that that student has a look at my feedback, recognises that, and then takes steps to try and learn that and progress that further. Okay, we are getting close. There's one more part after this. So assessment at Flinders, we talked about assessment, the statement of assessment methods, which you can access now for your topics and have a look at the different assessments you have. Essays, as an example, reports, presentations, tests, quizzes, exams, skills-based learning activities, practical assessment, curriculum, and feedback. So grades at Flinders. There's a grading scale at Flinders, and this is how it works. In your topic, you'll do a lot of different assessments, okay? And with those assessments, you'll typically get scores, okay? And associated with those scores is some feedback about how your learning is progressing, which we've talked about. At the end of your topic, you will have done a number of different assessments. And when you pull all those scores together, you get a final score for the topic, okay? And that final score for the topic then correlates to a grade point score. And that's the important thing that goes on your academic record, okay? Your academic record of achievement. So all of your assessments, when you put them together, if the aggregate score is about 85% or above, then that's called a high distinction. That's a really high score. And you get a point score of 7 for that. So towards your academic record, you get 7 points. It doesn't matter whether you get 85% or 100%, you'll still get 7 points, okay? If your score, aggregate score is between 75 and 84, you'll get a distinction. It's called a distinction, and you get a point score of 6. Between 65, 74, you get a credit, point score of 5. Again, it doesn't matter whether you score 65 and your friend scores 74, you both get the same point score. A pass is between 50 and 64%, and that, of course, is the hurdle to having the topic count toward your degree. If you get less than a pass, it doesn't count toward your degree, and you might have to study another topic to make up for it, okay? So that's a point score of 4, and if you get a fail grade, and failing a topic is not the end of the world by any means, right? Like I said, our learning is partial at any one point. It is okay to fail topics, okay? It certainly happens. If you do get less than 50% and you get a fail, you get a point score of 0, okay? And that goes in your academic record as well. There are also non-graded passes. This is where you have a topic that you have to pass, but you only get a pass or a not pass. You don't get any point score associated with this. On your academic transcript, it says non-graded pass. That means you can get your degree, but it doesn't count to your grade point average, which is the average of all of your point scores here. Okay, are you following me so far? Excellent. There are a few important dates with regard to withdrawing. Now, withdrawing is you've started a topic and then you think at some point during semester, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to stop this topic now. I'll pick it up another time, or I want to reduce my study load a bit because it's a bit too much for me, or I'm studying the wrong thing. I'll just study something else another time. Withdrawing is an important thing to keep in mind. You can do that, and there are a number of dates to keep in mind as well. The census date, 25th of August is this semester's census date. It normally happens after the 4th week of semester. That's right, I think it's about 4th week of semester. That's a month from the start of semester, so yes. If you withdraw before this time, you don't get a point score and you don't have to pay any tuition fees. It's like you never turned up to the topic, okay? So I've given it a go for 3-4 weeks, don't want to study this, not interested in it, and I'm going to pull out, okay? And it's like you never started it. Sometimes people enroll in more topics and have a go at a few topics and then withdraw from the ones they don't want to do. Not many people do that, but you can do it, okay? You can withdraw from topics before the census date. Post-census date, once you go past that date, you can still withdraw from that topic, but you've got to pay for it, okay? So that's the difference. So if you withdraw after the census date and you've paid for it, but before the 6th of October, which is much later in semester, you'll get a withdraw not fail recorded on your record, okay? That's fine. That means you've studied the topic, you went past the census date, a bit later on you did some assessments, whatever, and you think, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. And you withdraw, and that means you get a WN, which just means exactly that. You had a go, you didn't want to do it anymore, and you withdrew. There's no point score associated with that, so it doesn't contribute to your GPA. It's not a fail, okay, essentially. It's a withdrawal. There's also a withdraw fail date. So this is much later in semester, 3rd of November. So between these two dates, if you withdraw, you get a withdraw fail. So this is basically the same as a fail. You get a point score of 0. It's because you went so far in semester and you thought, oh, I'm going to withdraw now. That's fine, right, and everything like that. But you do get a point score of 0. On your transcript, you get a WF, which means that you actually just withdrew. You withdrew late in the semester. Yes.
I just thought it was worth mentioning, just with the census dates and the withdrawals and that if you're an international student, there can be implications for your visa if you fail topics or withdraw from topics. So the advice there would just be to speak to International Student Services before doing anything like that. And obviously coming and seeing us in the Student Learning Support Service for support if you're thinking you're potentially going to fail topics.
Thanks, Mel. That's Mel, by the way. Mel's the manager of the Student Learning Support Service. Now I'll talk briefly about your grade point average. So you've done a whole lot of topics. You've got point scores for them, okay, different point scores. And the average, the simple average of all of that is your grade point average. Okay, so I've got here average of all the point scores for all your topics you've studied in your degree. Zeros included, okay, but not the no point scores ones. And the GPA is kind of your official academic score, and it changes over time as you finish more topics. And it's useful to you for degree transfers and additional study, right? So when I was studying, I started a particular degree, and then I got halfway through my degree and I thought, I actually want to change my degree into something slightly different. And I was successful in changing to that other degree because of my grade point average was high enough, and they accepted that change. I've also had students that I've taught coming into the university, pre-university students, and they have got into, for example, a degree in health sciences, and they studied I think it was only the first 6 months, the first semester, and with their grade point average after the first semester, they were successful in transferring into paramedic science, okay? So you can kind of cut a path that you want at university, and maintaining a good GPA helps you to do that. Okay, so I've got a few examples of how the GPA works. So let's just say you studied 4 topics this semester, A, B, C, and D. And for each of those topics, you got a credit. Okay, so somewhere between 65 and 74, okay, percent. So you get 5 points for all of that. Now, a simple average of all 5s is just 5. So your grade point average at that point is 5. If you manage to get a distinction in 2 of those topics, okay, 6 points for topic A, 6 points for topic C, your grade point average, the average of 6 and 5 and 6 and 5 is 5.5, okay? So it's all of these added up and then divided by the number of topics 4. 5.5 is the grade point average, which is higher, okay? Notice that if you got a pass for one topic and a high distinction for another, instead of a credit and a distinction, they even out to be the same anyway. It doesn't change your GPA. Right, so a student who got a high distinction and a student who never got a high distinction can still have the same GPA, okay? So consistency is also important. Note this one. I think it happens on topic B. Instead of passing, if you fail that, you get 0 points instead of 4 points, right? Which causes the GPA to drop quite a bit. Okay, now it's not too much of a problem, like I said, but when it gets to that point, trying to pass a topic is worth putting the effort in, right? Because it does change the GPA quite a bit. Okay, so there are some examples of the grade point average. To finish, I just want to say once again, this is a quote from Carol Dweck. She is a professor of psychology at Stanford University in the United States. She's also the author of Mindset, a book. That's the psychological construct she's worked on in her career. She said this, grades are a byproduct of engaging deeply and effectively in the learning process. Essentially what she means is focus on your learning and the grades will sort themselves out, okay? Just to recap, all those different grades, including non-graded pass, all the withdrawals that you can do for the census date, for example, and grade point average. And I'm finished. So I would like to ask for some questions that you have, and also online. So just place in the chat your question maybe.
Yeah,
and type your question in the chat, and Mel will be able to read it out for us. Yes. It does not, there's no GPA point score for foundation studies students, but when you finish the foundation studies student, you'll be the foundation studies program successfully, you'll be able to start a degree, and then the degree you'll start earning it. Okay, so the question, I realize I have to repeat the question. The question is about studying in the foundation studies and how what you do in the foundation studies translates to your degree. What I'm going to say is it's separate. It's separate. So if you study the foundation studies program and you finish that, I believe you also get a competitive score, SATAC score, so you can apply for degrees with that. And then once you get, it's kind of like getting entry into university. So that's one of those pre-university courses. I teach into those too. And then, but once you finish that, you get entry to a degree. And I'm not sure if foundation studies appears on transcript. It probably does, actually.
Yeah.
Your foundation studies will appear on the transcript. So it's on your record to say you've done it and you've completed it, all that kind of stuff. But then when you start the degree, it's just a separate program. And you'll add to your academic record, but you kind of start fresh, right, in that degree. Yeah.
So that's one of those examples that Matt was talking about a non-graded pass that would appear on your transcript. Yep. So, but you do also with foundation studies get a competitive score as well. So there's about 30 degrees that you automatically get access to. So even if you get 50% in foundation studies, you automatically get access, but there's obviously about 30 of them. But if there's more competitive degrees, so if you wanted to get into like paramedics, for example, it's not on those list of 30 degrees. So you would need to get a really competitive score to then compete against others, for example. So it just depends what you're looking to go into. But if you're looking to go into any of those 30 degrees, that you automatically get entry by passing.
And that competitive score is an admission score, not a grade point average yet. Yeah. But that'll come. Yeah. Yes.
I think I misunderstood when you were explaining the grade.
Yes.
When you explained getting a pass, did you say that it does not count towards your degree? You have to do a different one?
Yes. Okay. The question is to clarify about passing. If you get a pass grade, you get a point score of 4, right? And the pass, you just need to pass in order for that topic to count toward your degree, right? So a pass gets you, the P's get degrees, right? So the pass will get you your degree and it will count toward it. It's just if you get a fail grade. So if you don't reach the 50%, and really, like I said, it's fine getting a fail, but the fail means that you haven't reached the minimum requirements to satisfy that topic, then you'll have to do that again. So it's the fail grade that doesn't count toward your degree. Yeah. Yes.
So in the learning launch, you just mentioned that there are learning advisors. May I know what they do? What they
Yes.
can help with?
Yeah, so the question is about the Learning Lounge and the advisors that are there to help. We employ learning advisors who are students normally they are students at Flinders, and normally they are studying their PhD. And they at various stages in their PhD in many different fields, sometimes in science, sometimes in literature, sometimes in psychology, and they are excellent advisors. We also spend some time with them, so that teaching them about teaching as well, obviously, and they are excellent to go and talk to. So whenever you walk on to level 2 of the library during those times in semester, you'll see some of them with a blue, you can't miss them, a blue jumper. No one else wears jumpers like this on campus. Blue jumper says learning advisor on it. Go and have a chat to them. They're great to talk to. They can help you with what you're working on. They will help you with regard to the writing and the, we call them academic skills, the skills that you employ to do those tasks, to organise yourself and be an efficacious learner, okay? Be the best quality learner you can, but we won't provide you very specific advice about the content that you're working on, okay? Because even though we have our own backgrounds, I have a PhD in chemistry, I won't help you with very specific detail on the chemistry because it's the people over the lake there in the College of Science and Engineering and Natural Sciences. They're the ones who will teach you the chemistry, okay? So if I was in the Learning Lounge, I would help you with what you're working on in the context of chemistry, of law, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'll actually be focusing on your study skills, okay? So my advice is to go and give it a shot and go and chat to them. Excellent. There's some questions online?
Yeah, there's one. So students are asking, does all this information also apply to master's students, or is there a difference?
All of this information applies to master's students, absolutely. Everything. Absolutely everything that I've talked about. So, yeah, there's absolutely no difference. The master's level is, I mean, obviously you will have completed a degree before doing the master's level. And if that undergraduate degree you've done is somewhere else, then there's a few different things about Flinders to learn about, which I've talked about today, but everything is 100% the same. Same with grades and everything like that. So if you're new to studying at Flinders and you're studying a master's degree, you'll start an academic record and transcript at Flinders, which is the Flinders transcript. And if you haven't studied here before, but you're studying master level, that transcript will be empty. Won't be anything on it yet.
Yep, and there's a follow-up question here, but it's about support services. So are all these support services available on all campuses or just Bedford Park? So it's probably also worth mentioning that with master's students, you can still get support from the Student Learning Support Service. In fact, we would encourage it. It's not just for undergraduate students. I can probably answer this one if you want, or do you want to answer this? Yep, so we do have a lot of support services that are also available online and some at other campuses as well. So it depends where you're studying. So for example, I'm not sure where this specific student is studying, but we do run drop-in learning support like the Learning Lounge down at Sturt campus. So if you're based down there, just across the bridge down the hill, a couple of days a week we will be down there, and all the details are on our website. Also, speaking of master's students, we have Ajmal, who's in the room here as well. He will be doing drop-in learning support at Victoria Square on Tuesday afternoons for the MBA students. Online, we have Studiosity, which Matt mentioned before, 24/7 online support. So you can submit a draft assignment of up to 8,000 words for feedback, and that's generally returned within a day. And you can also speak to a learning advisor in real time using audio or text, like chat. And so they can help with a wide range of queries. So anything around, for example, referencing, anything. They can help with maths and science related questions. So if you're unsure about how to, like referencing's a big one, paraphrasing, those sort of things, anything really, give them a go. So as a student, you get access to that for free and 24/7. So if you're sort of working on an assignment late at night or something, you can also come to us for time management tips, but inevitably, maybe there'll be a time where it might be 3 a.m. and hopefully not, but you might be working on it. And you can ask them.
Full disclosure, Mel is also studying at the moment.
I
And she
am.
frequently comes into the office and said that she pulled an all-nighter, which we do not advise any students. And she would
Well,
also not advise
I
any
think I'm
students
getting
to do
too
that.
old for an
She comes to
all-nighter, but sometimes it will be late. My undergrad, I used to sometimes pull all-nighters. I just can't do it anymore. But I should take my own time management tips, but sometimes it's hard and you just got to push through. But I would go to the Student Learning Support Service for time management tips. We also, just in answer to the support service as well, we do have a range of online study guides and resources, which obviously you can access at any time. So that's most of you will probably be studying through Canvas. Matt mentioned before, we're running in parallel 2 learning management systems at the moment. There's Flow and Canvas. You may hear those terms. We have resources on both sites, and there's also the website. So if you Google Student Learning Support Service at Flinders, there's links to everything from there. We have like about 80 or so study guides, which sounds like a lot, but you can find what you need, what you're looking for there. So hopefully that answers the question. And someone's saying, where can we access recording of these Teams live streams? So these will all be uploaded to the orientation web pages, I think this week. So that's another team sort of doing that. So it'll be either this week or next week, but we'll add a link to our Flow and Canvas pages too, just so you know that it's there.
Courses, yes. Yes, that's right. That's a very good point. So we are using the Canvas learning management system, which is a software platform which we don't administer. A company runs that, and then we use it, and they have their own language in there. So on the left menu it says courses, right? But that will be topics, right? But it's not just topics, it's anything which is arranged as a site in Canvas that you can access. So in the future, and possibly even now, depending on where you're studying, some of your lecturers might even have a Canvas course site for a course. You know what I mean? Or they might have one which is, Bachelor of Health Sciences that they've made for all the Bachelor of Health Sciences students. So you can go there and chat about things, get information from there. So just keep in mind that when you're in Canvas and you see it's written courses on the left, anything that looks Canvas originated, not from someone from Flinders has written it, the language might be a little bit different. I know that's a bit challenging, but that's the way it is, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah.
For the degree structure, we have 4 topics. We have major, minor, and elective topics. So if some of the topics will form another degree, like graduate diploma of something, so if I finish the whole degree, can I get a double degree or?
Yes. The question is, if you do a selection of topics, which in the end, after you've studied all these different topics, they might actually together make up a different degree, not the one you're originally admitted to. The answer is broadly, yes, you can get the other degree. Okay, so you would have to go through a process where you apply for that and you say to the college or whoever, you say, I want to make a degree transfer, and all of my topics that I've already done to transfer a degree from one degree to another, all of my topics that I've done, or most of them, not necessarily all of them, fit this other degree. Can I just transfer that across? And you can absolutely do that. I did that when I transferred my degree. The 2 degrees that I did, when I started one and I transferred to another one, they were very similar anyway, but there was 100% overlap with the topics that I studied in the first half that transferred to the second degree, and then I finished the second degree. Okay, so for me it was seamless, but I actually transferred that degree. My dad also studied, and he did something where he actually did exactly this. He studied a certain number of topics under a particular degree. I think it was a Bachelor of Arts, and then Flinders offered a new degree and all of his topics worked for the new degree. So he transferred it across and got a new degree, like a newly formed degree, right? At that time, which is related to law. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, we do have probably just because it wouldn't hurt if you were thinking about doing that, to sort of have a conversation with the student admissions team early, so you can contact them through like Flinders Connect, either on campus or by calling the number or submitting an Ask Flinders request. So emailing askflinders@flinders.edu.au. So that's what I would do, just to double check. So maybe some other topics that you'd have to do, or some things you'd need to go through to do that.
And there are some degrees that it's very hard to do that because you have a lot of core topics. Like if you studied a certain number of topics and then you wanted to transfer into Bachelor of Teaching or Nursing or something like that, and they normally have a very rigid, in a way, a rigid structure, because you've got to finish those for accreditation, then it's a bit more challenging. But the idea is that you can do that. It's just how it works out is another question. Yeah. Any other questions online?
No, yeah.
Are there any other questions in the room? No? Okay, that sounds good. I'll let you all go. Have a great day and welcome to Flinders.